Minister, in my area, if you find yourself having to rent a place, you are by definition in a housing crisis, unless you're very, very rich. The average rents are €2,200 a month. And to be honest, you'd be lucky enough to find a place for that at the moment, and they just continue to rise. Now, just think about that. You need after-tax income of €26,000 to pay that rent, to pay the average rent in my area. That is completely unaffordable for the vast majority of people. Someone on average industrial earnings would have, what, a bit under 30,000 left after tax, and they might have to pay 26,000 of that on rent. For childcare, for bills, for anything else, that's the situation in my area. And that's the worst in the country, but it's not, it's not far off what we have in the rest of Dublin. €2,000 on average now in Dublin. 24,000 after tax income required just to pay the rent. The highest available HAP rate, if you get homeless HAP, you'll only get homeless HAP if you're literally staring homelessness in the face, 1,850. Not allowed to look for a place that's more than 850 when the average rents are 2,200. By definition, if you're evicted because somebody is selling, somebody's landlord is moving a family member in, whatever it is, you are by definition in serious trouble and facing the very extreme likelihood of being homeless and being sent into accommodation. That's where it's at in my area. And I'm sick of it, to be honest, because this has just been going on for as long as I've been in this Dáil, which is a decade, and indeed before that. Rents never fell in Dún Laoghaire. And I remember when the HAP system was brought in, it didn't have the name HAP then, in 2011 by Fine Gael and Labour, when they said we're going to stop building direct capital projects, they said, oh, don't worry, rents are falling, because they'd fallen after the property collapse. But we knew in Dún Laoghaire they weren't falling, and the decrease in rents wouldn't last for long, and it didn't. And that a housing crisis was looming because of that decision. And to compound that, the policy was embarked upon for NAMA, who had all this property, to flog it off to vulture funds, who are now the very same people who are charging those extortionate rents. In some cases down the docks, €3,000 a month. And NAMA is still selling properties. It's not just past history. As I highlighted today in Leaders, NAMA is still doing this. It's touting and advertising the fact that the big corporate investors who can buy this stuff can make a fortune from the high levels of rents that can be charged at the moment. That's a state agency encouraging these corporate landlords to screw people with completely unaffordable rents. And the government does nothing about it. Doesn't mention it in the budget, continues to allow NAMA to do it, continues to allow a situation where the HAP rates are way below. The vast, vast majority of people, even who can get a HAP tenancy, have to top up their rent with money they can't afford, by definition, pushing them into poverty. And I'll tell you what this means, right? I mean, the harshnesses of it. I had a young person who came into me in the last 10 days who had made an attempt on their lives when they got a notice to quit from their landlord. Okay? And they're also struggling to get psychological services and social services in that situation, and still facing the possibility of homelessness. That's what's happening to people. For 4 years I've been going on about the people in St Helens Court who in the last week got a notice from the vulture landlord who took over their complex, that has been sitting on 13 empty apartments now for more than 2 years, is trying to evict them. They got a notice, legal notice, saying get out by this Friday, as in the day after tomorrow, or sorry, 2 days from now, the end of this week, or we'll be taking legal proceedings to get you out, and we'll bang you for costs as well. Okay? Because we haven't taken any action to prevent them, because it's a no-fault eviction, right? We should just ban the no-fault evictions. How can any government stand by why a vulture fund does that? I want somebody in the government to tell me what the tenants of St Helens Court and other people in similar situations are supposed to do. I want somebody in the government to tell me that when they go down to the homeless section of Dunleary-Rathdown County Council and the homeless section tell them you can find a place for $18.50 and the average rent is $2,200, what are they supposed to do? Can somebody just tell me what are they supposed to do? Because nobody gives that answer, and therefore the families just keep going into homeless accommodation, sent into hostels in town with when their kids are in school in Shankill or Dunleary or somewhere nearby, and they're supposed to go in and out from a hostel in town. When are we going to do something about this? Because we just hear talk, 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 and nothing happens. And I'll tell you, the Minister asked for honesty. We have been totally consistent, right? We never advocated linking rents to inflation, as some of the opposition did. Never. Okay, we never agreed with the rent pressure zones. We've been asking for years for a simple measure: control rents. Set rents. As they do in places like Austria, as they do in places like Denmark, as they do in a number of places around the world, they actually set initial rents. They don't cap how much they can increase them, they set initial rents. So we should set initial rents. It is disgusting that NAMA is touting for these extortionate rents when, as I highlighted today in Leaders, they have thousands of units, mostly apartments, under construction at the moment, and they are going to allow them to go out on the market at these €2,000 and €3,000 a month. They could just as easily, under direction from a minister, tomorrow, could say, no, we're only going to charge affordable rents based on a third of average income. And we're going to make them available to people who cannot afford the market rents. They could do that. The government could do that tomorrow. Now, 24,000 units that they could deliver in the next 2 to 3 years, that would make a big, big difference to a lot of people out there. And they're sitting on empty properties. Another thing we've been saying for a long time, and now we see the people in Berlin talking about it, is expropriate the vultures. Take them out of the market. They're not contributing anything. Take them out of the market. Why won't you do it? Right, we keep asking you. You shouldn't have sold them all the property in the first place. You certainly shouldn't still be selling the property by NAMA. But at what point do we learn and just stop this madness and say, we do not need these people in the market. They're contributing nothing except misery and making a lot of money for themselves. Take them out of the market. Expropriate them because, sorry, putting a roof over people's heads is more important than their right to make a profit off their investment. Okay? To me, that's simple. Empty properties, there should be a rule. 6 months, if a property is empty for more than 6 months and there is not a very good reason given for the owner, expropriate it. Take it over. Sorry, all the interesting excuses and complications are less important than the obscenity of people being homeless, literally on the streets of towns, cities and villages, while there are vacant properties lining the streets. Everybody knows it. You only have to walk around the city, walk out of this building, and you see the places. Some of them in public ownership. It's absolutely shocking. They're sitting there empty. Or one that, I mean, it wasn't built as for accommodation, but it just makes me sick because I see it nearly every day. Go past the Merrion Gates and look at a building called the C-Mark building. Right? It had been sitting there for 10 years empty. Built by your man McNamara, I think it was, originally. NAMA, and so on. It's just sitting there empty. You could put people who are homeless in there, refurbish it. You could put schools in there. We've nowhere for the schools. You could do all sorts of things, but it's just sitting there empty. That's just one example that drives me insane because I see it every day. But everybody knows this in their own villages and towns. Why will we not take the measures to expropriate those empty properties, refurbish them and give them to people who need them? We understood, surely, if there's any lesson from COVID, is that when you are faced with an existential crisis, you have an obligation to do emergency things that were never thought possible before. And it proved that when we were really pushed, we could actually do it in some circumstances. We did things that were absolutely considered unthinkable. Now, is the housing and homelessness crisis not an emergency on that level? That we need to do unprecedented things quickly in order to resolve it. To my mind, it is. So expropriate the empty property, expropriate the vultures, actually control rents at affordable levels, tell NAMA to deliver all its housing as solely public and affordable housing, and ban no-fault evictions, and we would actually make a difference to the human misery that is out there in terms of this housing crisis.
I now call